If you're riding an Africa Twin, you can laugh now because I have to buy the expensive gas for the BMW. Canada offers motorcyclists lots of camping, open roads, and beautiful scenery. This video is aimed at my American friends who may be considering coming to Canada. Whether you visit Canada on the way to Alaska or as a destination, here are 5 things you need to know before you visit Canada. Number 1. Crossing the border. U.S. citizens do not need a passport to enter Canada. However, according to the Canadian Border Services Agency, a passport is recommended. But you can enter Canada with proof of U.S. citizenship, such as a birth certificate plus government-issued photo ID, such as a driver's license. Marijuana. Although marijuana is legal in Canada, you cannot bring it in. The Border Services website is very clear about that. You can be fined up to $2,000. Also, your Second Amendment right to bear arms ends at the U.S. border. Canada has pretty strict gun control. Bringing a handgun into Canada is a criminal offense, even if it's perfectly legal where you live. This video is about motorcycle camping, so I'm not going to wade into any controversy over guns. I'm just telling you what the rules are. If you're hunting or moving to Alaska or shooting in a competition and you have a reason you need to bring a gun, you should check the rules. The biggest problem I've ever had crossing the border was having fruits and vegetables. In both directions, countries are trying to prevent pests from coming in, so they might make you dump your apples or tomatoes. Number 2 is the metric system. Canada is on the metric system, so be prepared for a few different measurements. First of all, speed. Speed signs are in kilometers per hour, not miles per hour. Speed limits in Canada are similar to the US, except for freeways, where yours are generally faster. 100 kilometers an hour is about 60. In the city, limits are generally 50 kilometers an hour, which is about 30. On my Hondas, it's pretty easy to change the speedometer to the correct units when I cross the border, but on my BMW it's impossible. Fortunately, my GPS indicates when I'm exceeding the speed limit, so I don't get into trouble. In Canada, we buy gas in liters, not gallons, so don't celebrate when you hit the first gas station with $2 on the sign. There are 3.8 liters in a US gallon, so that's $7.60 a gallon. However, the Canadian dollar is worth about 30% less than the US dollar right now, so the equivalent to that is about $5.32 US per gallon. Of course, prices may change a lot between the time I'm making this video and when you watch it. Okay, money. Canada has its own currency, of course. But your bank card should work at a Canadian ATM, and your credit cards will work in Canada just fine. However, you might get charged an extra fee for foreign conversion, so when you go to an ATM, get as much cash as you can instead of going many times. Similarly, there may be a surcharge on your credit cards. For example, one of my credit cards charges 2.5% for transactions that I make in the US. Canada's money has all different colors. The bills are made of a thin plastic with a clear section, which makes them hard to counterfeit. The smallest bill currently in circulation is a $5 bill, which is blue. The Canadian dollar is known as a loonie because it has a loon on it. But we also have a $2 coin, which we call a toonie. I wanted to call it a doubloon, but that didn't catch on. So when you spend a little cash, you're going to end up with a pile of loonies and toonies in your pocket, and they add up. Okay, you might be worried about the wildlife in Canada, but the only thing you really need to worry about is mosquitoes. I would be remiss not to warn you about mosquitoes if you're planning to camp in Canada. There's mosquitoes in most parts of Canada. Sometimes they're a mild annoyance, and sometimes they make it impossible to be outside without protection. There are many mosquito repellents available. I like to use a strong one with DEET. We call that DEET. Some people want to avoid chemicals, and they use citronella or even a net over their hat. Finally, number 5, camping. Canada has plenty of places to camp. As in the US, there are lots of private campsite operators offering a wide range of services. Canada has both national parks and provincial parks. Some major highways pass through Canadian national parks, and you can pass through without a permit. But there are both day passes and annual passes if you want to stop. You'll need to purchase a pass when you enter the park, even if you have a campsite reserved. You can reserve sites through the Parks Canada website. Provincial parks also offer camping, and there are too many to list. Here in British Columbia, you can reserve sites through the BC Parks website. If you want something less developed and more wild, BC has Forest Service campsites, which are like the US Forest Service sites. I'll list links to all these sources in the show notes. Land that's not owned or controlled privately is called Crown land, and you can wild camp there. No matter where you camp, be aware of the fire regulations. There is often a fire ban in the summer to avoid forest fires. The BC government has a website that shows active fires, and the same is probably true for other provincial governments. I've got a big trip planned through BC's Caribou this summer, so subscribe to my channel if you want to see how that goes. And stick around, watch the next video if you want to see how my first camping trip of the year went when I had to face the challenges of rain and cold weather. Thanks for listening.